Is it psychological which color mic I pick up? I have to apologize because my accent, I'm Flushing, Queens. And for those visiting, this is a Flushing accent. So,
I'm not sure that Andy's one of us anymore. He's been here so long. Quickly tell us about Unqork. What's it do?
Yeah, and Andy, thank you for the layup there because it is about data and flexible systems. So, it's interesting when you think about Unqork. I'm gonna get everyone moving a little bit, just at least hands. But how many of you are running either on your personal device or home antivirus software today? A word you probably haven't heard. Should be everyone, right? So, how many of you creating your own antivirus software today? Good. And the reason is also the reason why insurance exists. It's pooled risk. It's the idea that if you could code, I could code, I'm still an engineer, I could code a virus software, it's not hard to do it, but am I gonna maintain all the viruses? And the chances of someone trying to hack into my machine and then me seeing it and then me updating that for my company would be slim, but pool the risk. We all are basically going to share in a common knowledge of there's one database of all those viruses. That company will maintain that system, whether it's an iPhone or Android or whether it's a Mac or a PC, whatever the devices might come, they're responsible. The problem is software. If I ask you now, how many of you are creating custom software in your shop, your company, even custom software to us is a single line of script. It could be HTML, it could be, just raise your hand if you're creating. So we would say why? And what I mean by that is it's the exact same analogy with a virus software. Each application you're building, as simple as it might be as a contact us page on a website, it's facing the hackers by itself with no knowledge of every other company around it, every other application around it. So what is Unqork? Unqork is the equivalent of that virus software company. We're saying, how do you pull and scale such that every application created makes everyone else's applications more secure, more scalable, more reliable, cheaper to run? And that just keeps going exponentially up until the point that you don't think if you're running virus software anymore. That's what we created Unqork to do.
Just to clear up one thing, I couldn't code my own virus software.
I could help you. So, we could do it in Unqork if we wanted to. But so yeah.
you've got so indisputably you have AI as part of that solution. We'll talk a little bit about that later in the day. But one of the things you have to manage in doing what you're doing is that enterprises are having to deploy AI. They're working out what it means, how and when to adopt it and for what. How do you advise people to deal with those challenges? What should they be looking out for, certainly in terms of deploying something which they can innovate around and they can scale around?
Yeah, and so it's a funny story to share. And so years ago, when blockchain was the keyword, remember, everyone should remember when that was, but I remember we visited an insurance company and the CEO and his executive team, and we had an Unqork slide up, and before we even got to who we are and what we do, there was a question, and it was, I think the chief architect said, do you use blockchain? And we're like, no, we're being trusted by JP Morgan and Goldman to store customer data securely, and we are the most secure software in the entire world, and I could say that confidently. There's nothing you could build more secure, and we don't need it. It's an overhead. So they go, okay, and next question was like, what happens to Unqork when the keyboard goes away and the mouse goes away and there's no more monitor and there's no more mouse and and I'm like Alexa and Siri, like we integrate with that, and that's our problem. You don't need to change. And I stop and I go, I'm excited for this. Like, this is a really progressive insurance company that's been around a long time. How can we help you? What's your biggest problem? And the CEO looks and goes, our whole business is run on fax machines. Can you get rid of the fax machines? Like that was and it's just a disconnect. And so with Gen AI, Robin, and what we see there, there's a lot of exciting use cases, but AI is not new. AI's been around for my neural net I tried to predict off-track bet racing in New York was in 1994. It didn't work. I'm here. But when you think about like what it's doing, the problem is we are going to be in a world now where the models are going to keep leapfrogging each other, and they're going to get really good at one thing but not another thing, so you're going to have to chain models together. And as a consumer of technology, you need to be able to be flexible. Like Andy said, you have to be able to adapt and quickly. You're going to want to swap models in and out. And the challenge, because I spent 5 years as MetLife's global CIO and 20 years in MD in Wall Street before that. And I was building high-speed trading systems, presenting to SEC and the OCC and all the regulators. And I know DFS, I know IFS in Japan, IFA. Like, the problem is the regulators don't like this stuff. And the challenge will be, how do you build these systems such that the regulators will actually let you run them and use them?
Well, let's talk about the regulators, because that's there are a different set of challenges that apply in a regulated industry. You work, Unqork doesn't just work in insurance, you do quite a lot of regulatory environments. For the purpose of this, insurance, what is it particularly you need to do in a regulated world? How do you help people where they have to get this stuff right and the regulator is looking over their shoulder?
Yeah, so and going back to, for those who haven't seen Unqork, if I sat here with Rob and I almost stressed him out and said, can we just build an application with all of you on the fly and show it? Because I did it last week, and it was 10 minutes. The idea is once you build it, the compliance you can't violate. So SOC 2, Type 2, Privacy Shield, GDPR, Privacy 2020, HIPAA compliant, ISO compliant, WORM, and we got FedRAMP certified in 6 months. You can't violate that, and you don't think about it. That's just built in. What it means to an insurance company is the missing piece in all I just went through is traceability. It's lineage. We could always use AI in insurance. The regulator would say, how did you come to that conclusion? Show me the thought process that went into that. The truth is, underwriters can't tell it to you today. You have to go to Iron Mountain and pull logs if you're in technology to prove what happened. But AI and what I see happening with Gen AI, the most exciting thing is the thing you don't hear. It's going to be able to explain how it came to the answer. And Google would introduce us to a company here, Elemental Cognition, speaking, I think, later. There we go. And if you combine Unqork and Elemental Cognition, and we'll say running on Google, you could basically create a full traceability lineage to show a regulator the thought process, the inputs, the outputs to prove. And Unqork has the ability, why the banks love us and why all the banks use us, is we could recreate a transaction in the past as if it was today. We could show you, Aon changed their brand and design. Andy went through an entire branding. We could actually show you in Unqork what it looked like before the brand with all the logic from there as a time machine, time capsule. When you combine that with an AI model that could actually show you traceability and explanation, you don't need people at that point. Like, that's a whole other world that we're coming into.
You're going so well until that last sentence.
I've got to throw it out.
You guys are going, oh no. I love your I don't know what the origin of it is, but I'm going to use it all the time. This issue of data lineage. Data lineage. I love it. It's like archaeology, effectively.
It's and technology can't do it today outside of Unqork. Just to be very clear, like if you're coding any application today in any technology, using any platform or they can't recreate the past. There's no way to show you what the inputs were, the outputs were, to show it wasn't tampered with, what was. So Robin, you and I each create an application today. You use Gemini and I use a different model in Gemini. How do I know there wasn't a bug in your inputs or the outputs? You can't. But we could recreate that. And the data component, as Andy said, like data to us, AI is meaningless without good quality data. When I entered insurance from capital markets, I was like I kept hearing the word complex. It's complex, it's complex. And I had about 10,000 engineers working for me. We were spending $2 billion a year. And what I realized complex was there's business rules. It's not complex. And then there was a project that existed in 2012 that I inherited called Electronic Deathmatch. This is the coolest name for a project I've ever heard in my life. Like I was excited. And then I realized it was insurance companies, 90% of the Social Security numbers in the databases were inaccurate and wrong. That's the whole project was around cleaning up data to get accuracy. And that was still exciting, I guess, but yeah.
So last question, but what's in the light of all that, all of which is pretty compelling, what's the one bit of advice you'd give to an insurer sitting out here who is looking to deploy AI and needs to know what to do?
So buy the book, and each employee in your company should be reading Who Moved My Cheese. It's a very old book, very thin, easy read. I had bought it for my group back in 2002 when I was running a mainframe group and Java was the thing. And I'm like, we're all moving to Java. We're all moving to the web. Like, let's move on. I think it's about just understanding we don't yet know what the future is. And if you're holding on to the past, you'll be left behind. And that's it.
Who's the author? I'm going to go and find it.
I don't know. Is
Oh,
there?
okay,
Come on.
sorry.
Google. Can we Google this? Is there like?
Nigel will show you. Nigel will show you a film later. It's really easy to get. Gary, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you very much for
Thank you,
joining us.
Robin. Thank you.